18-year-old me was an absolute wiring savage. This is my wiring from almost 20 years ago. My needs have changed. There's holes through the firewall with no grommet and wires running through them. I've got relays that I don't even use anymore. The car's not gonna burn to the ground. Everything's fused. My dad taught me right there. It's time to eat my wiring elephant and just start diving in.
Cleaning this up, I have a relay for an electric fan that's not being used. I'm gonna start getting rid of that and slowly working my way down this mess of wires through the firewall, and we're gonna make this a lot better. That right there is what started this whole adventure.
I knew that after 20 some odd years, some of those wires may be getting thin, so what I got was this really nice firewall pass-through. Now granted, this is for a much bigger wiring harness that I'm putting into it, but my thinking is that if some is good, more is better. Too much is just right, and this is where it starts to get depressing. You start pulling on things and realize it's just a mess. But I know for a fact that I don't need this relay, so let's just start getting rid of that. What kind of lunatic uses red wire for both the power and ground of an electric fan? The answer is, it's me. Once upon a time, my wiring needed a lot of help, and I didn't spend a lot of money getting colored wire. I just used red for everything. It's starting to look better. So what I did is I started here at one end, and I went all the way to the interior and started identifying circuits that I didn't need. I had an old electric fan relay that didn't need to be there. The wiring was just run to the interior. Little did I realize, but there was actually a hot wire that went from my little auxiliary fuse block all the way into here next to the shifter, and I didn't realize it was there. So it's kind of a good thing to be going through this. Even though that was fused, it could have caused some problems. So now the thing I have to do is identify the circuits that I want to keep, which is a fuel pump. I have 2 triggered inputs for my rev limiters. I think that's about it. I've got 2 switch circuits for the fan. My fuel pump is just going to be keyed on. So I'm going to move everything over to this fender well, where it's a lot closer to my power and ground, and start building what needs to be there. So this is the space that I have that I kind of want to put it. And it's roughly 8 inches by 7 inches. And this is just the fuse for the electric fan. It can easily be moved and adjusted. So I'm thinking to put it here because it's convenient to get to the interior, and I've got ground and power main distribution blocks there. So to fix this, I've got a new fuse block that is actually a bit more weather resistant. It's not weatherproof, but it sure helps. It's got a cover on it, and this one has a kind of a bus bar setup that's got all the grounds here, a bunch of fuses, probably more fuses than I'm going to need. I'm going to grab some cardboard, and we're going to do some CAD, cardboard aided design. So here's my proposed layout. 8 inches long, 7 inches wide. I've got the bus bar here, the fuse block here, and I got room for several relays. Probably at least 2, possibly 3, and this guy can always get shuffled around. Actually, I kind of like that. So this works, but I now want it to stand up a little bit. So I think I'm going to measure off about 1 inch from here, measure it down, and then make a little foot so that way this can stand on. And you're going to ask, what the heck are you going to make this out of? Well, I've got a piece of sheet metal hiding out over there that I think is going to be a perfect plate, and it's going to get cut, nicely painted, and I've got a sheet metal brake that I built down there that we're going to bend this all up on. So this is what I'm thinking, and I think it'll work out okay. Basically, it spaces it up 1 inch, gives me room to fasten the fuse block, the bus bar, the relays. It's got a way I can hold it down. A couple of bolts, it'll work great, and it'll be solid and secure and, moderately out of the way, but still where I can get to it. Check this out. Ignore the crusties. I'll clean that up in a minute. But this chunk of sheet metal is, 1/4, 3/8 of an inch wider than what I had in mind. I think that'll work out okay, and I'll just clean up this slightly ragged edge. So I'm just going to sketch this up, trace it out just a little bit. I know it's a rectangle. It's easy to trace, right? And then I'm going to work on cutting it. That's thicker than I want to cut by hand with tin snips. I may just set up the bandsaw real quick and just zip right through it. That's pretty okay for a homemade sheet metal brake, wouldn't you say? Most interesting visitor came out to the shop this evening. If a grinder and paint make me the welder that I ain't, apparently I make runs all over the place with paint, so don't ask me to paint anything. So the panel is painted. I'm going to get this thing assembled with the fuse block and the bus bar, and probably take the label off that relay so that way it can become the new fuel pump relay, making it easier to move everything over. So I'm using the fuse block and the bus bar, but how the heck do you do that and make it look halfway clean? Granted, this is the first time I'm ever doing it this way.
I've never done it before, so I'm learning as you're seeing me do this. But basically, you just come off of the pin and come down cleanly to the bus bar with the wire. As an example, this is going to be the trigger wire for my switch panel, which is right there, which all it does is switch rev limiters and give inputs to toggle the fan. So all that this is going to do is just basically carry a signal. So if this is a 14 gauge wire, it'll be sufficient for the current load that it sees. So I'm just going to come off, turn down, and connect to that bus bar using one of those little guys, and then the output will go to the switches. No matter what I did, I just did not like my fuse panel anywhere here. That pile of stuff used to be the HVAC ductwork on the inside of the dashboard. There's a little bit of cleanup I still got to do, but this panel is actually going right on the back side of those sheet metal screws. That's where my coil is mounted on the far side. This is going to go in there like that, where I can get to the fuses, where I can get to the connections. It's close to my ignition system. Everything's going to work. Now the firewall pass-through. That's a new story. From the factory, that is the little pass-through for the computer. The problem is it's a pain in the butt to actually use. So what I'm going to do is, I haven't decided where yet, but I'm going to put it straight through this block-off panel, probably down here in the corner where everything can come through nice and neat. Any wires can go through the firewall and go to places where they need to be. So the register, the part that's going to pass through the firewall, right here, measured out at like 1 inch, 945 and a little bit. I've got a 2-inch hole saw here that measures out at 1 inch, 970. Holes are drilled, it's just set in place. I'm going to go to the interior, tighten the 2 nuts down on the backside, and it's good for the next step. And with the firewall pass-through complete, I'm starting to pull things from my old power block over there. This is the fuel pump wire. I'm just going to stuff this through that hole and start getting a feel for how I want this to run. Now, I do have a couple wires through that existing one. Those are for my ignition. They may just stay there because that keeps them isolated from any radio noise going on there. So I'm going to start pulling that through. I got to make a power wire that runs from my power distribution block here in there to the fuse block and start getting things happy. What's a good project that doesn't snowball and change plans 28 times while you're doing it? And I've put in some of those nutserts to accommodate bolting this nicely to the firewall, as opposed to using something potentially barbaric like self-tappers or sheet metal screws. We're going to try and do something a little bit nicer. So to transfer this bolt pattern to the inside of the firewall where it's terribly convenient, I've made some of these little guys. Basically, it's a 1/4-20 bolt that's cut down to a point. I do have a small lathe. You could have the same effect with a grinder, or you can buy transfer points. But I'm going to hold this up against the firewall and basically lightly scratch where these bolt holes are going to be in the firewall. And now with the fuse block mounted to the firewall, I've already run some of them like these big 10 gauge power and grounds. I'm going to get those hooked up, and I'm going to start working on the fuel pump, which is next. This is just coming off a keyed source, so it just triggers the relay when the key is on. I've got that, and I also have a 12 gauge wire right here. Yes, I'm making sense of all this madness. This wire is for the fuel pump post relay, so I'm going to start wiring things up. The new panel that's going to go on the back of the Mega Shifter console is fabricated, painted, and cooking. The switches I'm going to be using are these Nylite rocker switches. I opted for these as opposed to the more expensive industrial ones because I want to make sure I like this style of switch before I plunk down big money on really high-end switches. So this is nice, they light up, they tell me when the circuit's activated. So yeah, time to move over to the car and start making connections. And this is where the panel is sitting. The bus bar is working out nicely, the fuse block. I've got lots of room for extra stuff and ways to be able to connect things in and out of this panel. So this is kind of cool, and I realize this is an old school way of doing it with the bus bar, but it works out moderately convenient for what I'm doing. Yes, my wiring color is a little wonky. The extra wiring I had ordered just showed up today, so I've now got more colors than this, which is where I got the orange for the trigger wire of my switches. Now I'm going to go through and zip tie everything together, and I made sure I've got zip ties for the vertical runs, the horizontal runs, and even one over here in the middle. And then I got to put my glove box back in because that would be nice to have back together. But this is looking so much more manageable and so much more functional than what I had before. So now to start doing my zip ties, getting everything harnessed back down, and hook my little console for my mega shifter. And I want to be clear, yes, this is ugly. No, this is not my best work. This is a stopgap because the wiring needed to be addressed, and that was just a solution I had to quickly hold the switches until I can build the rest of the console. So this is what's left of the original wiring mess. That little fuse block, which is probably corroded to no end. The flamethrowers for the exhaust. When I had tailpipes, I'd blow little fireballs out the side. It was a heck of a lot of fun. Keep in mind, teenager enjoyment. The other thing I got to do is get another horn. For some reason, I only have one horn, and it gives that kind of a sad sound. As well as I got a wire for power seat, which is no longer a power seat, is now anchored because it works better. And I'm glad that I didn't put it here, because keeping everything on that side of the firewall has sure worked out nice. And I had a couple of stainless 1/4 button head bolts, which worked out really nice to bolt that to. And admittedly, I went and picked up a tool I didn't know I needed as much as I do. This thing is a heck of a lot of fun. In the time since, I've found like a dozen things that I'm going to 1/4 riv nut together. So more to come with this guy. And on a fun side note, I was keeping track of all the wires that came out of the car, and I just threw them into a pile here. And I want you to know that only a small fraction of these wires went back in, but I also pulled out some of the HVAC ducting. I was getting rid of the ancient car alarm on this, which is why I had a funky horn relay thing going on, which I'm not entirely sure is correct, but I'll troubleshoot that down the road. It's a race car. It doesn't necessarily need a horn, and it's already got the safety inspection. So I'm at least good for a little while, right? The fuse block is hiding back up there. Yes, it's a little bit of a mess still, and I've got some more cleaning to do, but I'll get down there with a pair of zip ties sooner or later. And yes, that is a little askew. I'm trying to be stealthy with my MSD, but you know something, it tends to peek through. I may just take that cover off and let the world know what I'm packing, you know what I mean? Am I done with wiring on this car? No, not a chance. I'm probably 14, 15 hours into this project alone between moving the fuse block, adding the fuses, but you know something? There's a lot more that can go still in simplifying, cleaning, adjusting. That's a story for another day. I got other projects I got to move on to. My son's out there. He needs some help with a project he's working on. So it's time to button this up and call it good. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you like this video, check this one out over here. I know you like that one too. Still managed to forget some wiring bits from my pile.